Hello again. This is Mrs. Harple, and today we're going to talk about the art of annotation. This is an annotation strategy that I highly suggest that you use, not only in our class this year, but in your life going forward, because annotation is probably one of the most important skills when it comes to using texts. I know throughout my life that when you have a lot of things to read and you're working on a lot of things at once, having the ability to annotate texts so that when you go back to them and you're very quickly able to understand the text and what was most important saves you time and also makes you a lot less crazy. So let's take a look at some easy strategies for marking a text. So I like to use a 3-tier system. All right, there are 3 components here. The first one, underlining or highlighting significant text. This does not mean underlining and highlighting everything. I'll show you a little bit more of this on the next slide. Number 2 is using a shorthand marking so that you can quickly go back to the most important parts. And the third part is the part that a lot of people don't do, but I think is the most important in a lot of ways, is writing margin notes. So the first step is something that you all know how to do, and you've definitely done it before. So it's either underlining or highlighting words or section of a text that you feel are particularly meaningful, so the most important, linguistically rich, which is something that's kind of probably new to you, or maybe just puzzling, things you don't understand. So here's a quote from Weighing In by Seamus Heaney. "A deep mistake in chivalry, old friend. At this stage, only foul play cleans the slate." So far I've only underlined these 2 phrases, right? I didn't underline the whole thing, I didn't highlight everything, but I just chose 2 phrases to sort of focus in on. And we'll just figure out why I may have underlined them in a minute. But you want to always keep these concepts in mind. Is it something that's meaningful or important? Is it just linguistically rich? Do I like the way it sounds? Or is there a cool device that the author is using? Or is it something I have a question about that I might want to go back to later? So those are the things you should think about as you underline or highlight. Now, after I've underlined and highlighted, the second thing I do is make a shorthand marking. All right, so you're going to use one of these marks in the margin to the right, I usually like the right, of the underlined or highlighted text. So it's not enough just to highlight. You have to go the next step further. I usually use a check mark or a star. Like this. Can I get a star? Yeah. To mark the most important ideas. This is especially helpful if you are annotating something for history class or science, right? And these are the things that you need to go back to. Maybe they're definitions you want to study. It's a lot easier to find those things if they're checked off or they're starred, and you can find them quickly. A question mark next to the things you do not understand. Again, this is especially helpful because you can go back to the teacher and you can ask a clarifying question on something you didn't understand from your reading, or maybe it's something that you want to ask a friend about. And so it's a lot easier, especially if we have a discussion and I might say, okay, what are some questions you had from the text? You can very quickly find the spot where you had the question if you put the question mark next to it. And an exclamation mark is next to any ideas or languages that you find striking, right? These are kind of the spots that got you excited, or it could also be something that got you kind of angry, right? Or something you found interesting, right? It's just something that really struck you. So back to our example, maybe I put a question mark next to a deep mistake in chivalry because maybe I don't know what the word chivalry means. And maybe I just don't understand that phrase. It's like a deep mistake in chivalry, huh? Like, I don't get that. So I'm going to put a question mark next to it. And then for only foul play cleans the slate, I just like the way that sounds. It sounds kind of spooky. So I'm going to put an exclamation point next to that. So the last bit is after you underline and you use your mark, you need to write a brief and meaningful note in the margin. Okay. So deep mistake in chivalry. What's this phrase mean? I have no idea what that means. That's why I have that question mark there. And only foul play cleans the slate, I'm going to add, this sounds ominous. It sounds spooky, right? Like, ooh, I wonder what that means. I wonder what's going to happen. So for this year in this class, annotations always mean this 3-tier practice. So if I ask you to annotate something for homework, I'm looking for that you've done these 3 things. Okay, and annotations will be graded based upon your use of this system. So you want to make sure you're doing all 3 steps in order to receive full credit. I think the easiest way to do this online is you can use Google Docs in the comments feature to add your annotations and highlight and your markings, or you can obviously do it the old school way and take pictures to submit to Google Classroom too of your annotations. So either way, whatever works, this is how you'll be assessed.